It was the empire on which the sun never set, or as some said, on which the blood never dried. At its height, Britain ruled over a quarter of the world's population. Many convinced themselves it was Britain's destiny to do so. Much of the empire was built on greed and a lust for power. But the British came to believe they had a moral mission too, a mission to civilize the world. The builders of empire were bold. They were adventurous. Some were ruthless, and some were just a bit unhinged. The sheer expanse of British rule was breathtaking. It stretched from the wilderness of the Arctic to the sands of Arabia and the islands of the Caribbean. There was a time when Britannia really did rule the waves. And it's a memory which has never wholly faded.
Once, the Navy imposed blockades, sank enemy vessels at will, suppressed slavery, mapped the world's uncharted oceans, and generally forced Britain's will onto foreign governments. That heritage helped Britain to believe she's still entitled to a place at the top table in world affairs. How did such a small country get such a big head?
So much that shaped the extraordinary story of the British Empire was born here, in the complex, time-worn expanse of India. It was here the British learned the art of imperial power. Yet it was a treaty signed thousands of miles away that determined the fate of India. In February 1763, the great European powers were meeting in Paris to end years of war and to divide the world between them, from Canada to the Philippines.
Britain's representative at the peace talks was the Duke of Bedford, a stubby, arrogant little man who'd never been to any of these places. In fact, his gout had made it difficult enough for him to get to Paris. But the Bedfords did pretty well out of the summit. The Duchess was given an 800-piece porcelain dinner service by the King of France, and the Duke got India for the British.
The technologically advanced countries of Europe were eyeing up foreign lands for future conquest, and Britain had a head start.
India was decisive. It gave Britain the resources, the markets, the manpower, and the prestige to build a worldwide empire. And in the years to come, they worked feverishly to secure that prize. First, Britain took control of the Mediterranean. Then they took the Cape of Good Hope at the bottom of Africa. Then Mauritius in the Indian Ocean. then Ceylon, now Sri Lanka, of course, and finally Singapore. A web of strongholds right across the globe. This was the beginning of Britain's time as the undisputed top dog of the world. Yet the whole thing was built upon something decidedly fragile.
A small island like Britain couldn't by itself find the manpower to hold on to this vast new territory. So they came up with a system that would become a cornerstone of empire. They paid local soldiers to fight for them. British officers would now lead Indian troops. The colonized would provide the fighting force of colonialism for centuries to come. The Madras Regiment, founded in 1758, is the oldest in the Indian Army. It spent most of its existence fighting not for independent India, but for Britain. It doesn't bother Captain Dilip Shaker that his regiment helped to build the empire.
These are the battle honors we won under the British. On the left, you can see these are outside India, like places like Bourbon, Ava, China,
Afghanistan,
Afghanistan,
Burma, Kilimanjaro.
Yes.
Oh, that's in the First World War in East Africa, isn't it?
Yes.
And then all these have
Yeah,
battles you
these
fought?
are within India.
Sure, but 3/4 of your battle honours are when you were part of the British Army.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
That's great.
Well, you were on the wrong side then, if you're from an Indian nationalist point of
Yeah,
view. weren't you?
basically
You were
a
fighting for the
soldier.
British.
We were soldiers, and a soldier does not know whose region it is for he is fighting. Tomorrow, I have a fight with any other country. I'm told to fight with that country. I don't have any personal grudges.
Do you think? I mean, do you think the British being here was a good thing or a bad thing or what?
Whatever happens in the history is history, but still we should not be going into that. But yes, they have done good for us and even bad to us that way.
But it's a good thing they're not here, isn't it?
But all the troops you could hire could never control such a huge country. The British needed a political system to keep them in power, and they found it in the Indian princes. In the mid-1800s, the British invaders signed a treaty with the local ruler here, the Maharaja of Jodhpur. They promised him he could go on running his kingdom just as before, but he'd have to pay them for the privilege. This protection racket would be repeated all over India.
Fantastic goal there by Mehrankar. They have finally woken up, ladies and gentlemen.
In time, the ruling classes of the two peoples would become entwined.
Meanwhile, Bhupender with the backhander, turning the tide a little bit. Ramesh on the near side.
British customs and British dress became part of the trappings of Indian court life. The present Maharaja is the product of both cultures. This is the family palace, designed for them by a British architect. Understated little place.
Good morning, sir. Welcome to Taj Mahal Palace.
Good morning. Good morning. But as the British extended their grip on India, they tore up the treaty they'd made with the Maharaja's ancestor. They stripped the Maharajas of their power, but let them keep their palaces.
This way.
This is your drawing room, is it?
This is my drawing room. Yes, we've tucked ourselves into a little corner of the palace.
And all these chaps on the walls there
All
are
my
ancestors, aren't
Yes,
they?
absolutely. That's my father behind you. And that's my great-great-great-grandfather.
Great-great-great-grandfather. Splendid beard.
Yeah.
I suppose the first question is, what should I call you?
Babji.
But what does that mean?
Everyone calls me Babji. Babji is a term of endearment as well as a term of respect.
What does it mean?
Literally, it means Bap, which means father. And Ji is like an honorific.
But even as a child, you were called Babji.
Yes, absolutely.
Your own involvement, of course, in Britain is considerable, isn't it?
Since the age of 8.
You were sent away to school in England, then?
Prep school, yes. Prep school to Cot Hill, then Eton, then Oxford. 14 years in all.
So you were really brought up as an English child.
English boy. But I would switch.
Is that good?
I would switch, being what I was. Being an Englishman and become an Indian when I came home.
When you look back at that original treaty, how do you feel about the British reneging on it?
My ancestor at that time, he was very unhappy. First of all, to sign that treaty in the beginning. But he had no option left to self-preservation. But then he was very unhappy with it. Until the period came when we learned how to use that presence to our advantage, get the best out of the system.
And at that point, it becomes unclear who's pulling whose strings, doesn't it? Quite tricky. At the heart of British authority was a gigantic confidence trick. It worked for as long as the illusion could be maintained. Take Government House in Calcutta. It was the seat of British power in India. It's still the headquarters of the regional government today. When it was built in 1803, there were fewer than 6,000 British officials nominally ruling over some 200 million Indians. As one British Governor-General who lived here put it, if each black man were to take up a handful of sand and by united effort throw it upon the white-faced intruders, we should be buried alive. And that's the reason for the scale, the grandeur, the sheer boastfulness of this place. The idea being, if you look like a ruler, the people will treat you like a ruler. It helps to explain that arrogant, self-satisfied look you see on the faces of so many British imperialists. But the appearance was an enormous bluff. It could only be a matter of time before that bluff was called.